Are you paying too much in taxes? Elevated Tax and Accounting is a firm that specializes in tax planning and strategy to minimize your tax bill. Elevated Tax consult with you on tax strategy throughout the year, so no more waiting until the end of the year and hoping for the best. As a business owner, you know your sole focus should be spent working on your business, not in it. Outsourcing gives you the time to concentrate on the core reasons you started your company, to create and innovate a top-tier product and generate profits. Elevated Tax and Accounting, elevating you and your business with a modern professional touch.
All right, excited to be back with you all. It's been about a month since we would have last seen each other in Frisco, and certainly a lot of time to reflect on the season and all that was accomplished, and certainly appreciate everything that we did in 24, and ultimately that night in Frisco, we came up short, and there's no changing that. So through reflection and through quite a bit of change now the last month, we're here to address some of that today. The first being the completion of our National Signing Day class here today. Today's 6 guys are really a continuation of what we did back in December. The 4 high school guys were all guys we were recruiting through a better part of the summer and the fall. Timing with the signing day being pushed up made a couple of those scenarios. The 2 Texas young men in particular, their visits came post signing day, and then I know as we were working through Jackson Lieberg and Michael Rubich, those situations just carried on past the initial signing day. So guys that we were all recruiting for quite some time, and really excited about the 4 high school additions, and then the 2 junior college additions were both opportunities that were presented probably post Frisco. We obviously had the departures for the senior class, but then we had several other departures through the course of that the days that followed, and that's the nature of college football right now. It just is, and your ability to adapt, I suppose, see things coming, react, all those are all words I would use as far as what it takes in between semesters. I know at least for this cycle there'll still be another portal window at the end of April, and we're always recruiting, and I do think this truly does complete our high school efforts for the 25 class, but it's not to say we won't continue to recruit and continue to evaluate our roster, and then ultimately make a few changes or additions, I should say, once we get to the end of the school year. So again, excited about the group in its entirety. Ended up being 28 high school guys, 14 on offense, 12 on defense. I know one we still see as an offense defense potential guy. That's Tommy Springman from here in town, and then 3 specialists. We added 1 more Montanan, so 11 Montanans in this group. Really excited about that number. And then between Washington and Texas, 5 and 4 between those 2 states. I get 2 from Idaho, and then 1 each from Arizona, Minnesota, Oklahoma, Oregon, Utah, and Wyoming. So really covered our footprint. And then the junior college young man, 1 from Texas and 1 from California. So, excited about this group, and we'll go through the six new guys right now. First being Jackson Lieberg, Helena High, 3-sport athlete. Jackson's excelled on the football field for sure, and that's caught our eye as a receiver. A do-it-all guy, played DB, was a specialist for them, and really had a great year for the Bengals, a great career. And then he also excels on the basketball court and has excelled on the track too. So, I think in Jackson we see a guy that had college level potential to play a couple different sports, and ultimately football won out, and we're really excited to bring Jackson. I think he has a lot of potential at the receiver position. He's big, he's fast, he can jump, he's got excellent ball skills, and that just doesn't show up on the football field. It does on the hoops court as well. And what Jackson can become is what we're most excited about. He's a competitor. He's got again the intangibles that we're looking for to mix with his tangible, his size, his athleticism. And I know he's really excited to, become a Bobcat and again, become that 11th member of this class from the state of Montana. Next up, Bryant Meredith. Like I said, Bryant was a guy that we weren't recruiting. We got on, after we played down there in Frisco, and I think our needs became a little bit more apparent after those next couple of days unfolded, and really looking for guys, a couple like we signed that have some position flexibility. I think to go into that DB category. I think Bryant, coming out of Fullerton College, he spent a semester at NAU out of high school. He comes from De La Salle, storied high school program in the Bay Area. So, there's a lot to like about Bryant's pedigree and then just his play on the field. I think we talk in terms of position flexibility for him. The free safety nickel combination is certainly a piece to it. I think he's got cover ability and could be a corner as well, but we're going to start him in the safety room and start him probably in that combination of being a free safety and a nickel. So really excited about, Bryant, his competitive nature, his athleticism, his quickness, and he's going to bring an edge, I think, right away. I think why these two young men from the junior college ranks shows us, I think they identified with our culture as much as the opportunity that presents itself for them. So, in Bryant, I think we got a guy that's, even watching him in conditioning drills this morning, wants to come in and compete and win at everything he does. Next up, Ife Oolate. I think I got that right there. Ife comes to us from Blinn Junior College down in Texas. He's originally a product of Lake Travis in the Austin, Texas area. Again, that's a really storied program in its own right. Ife is a couple years older. Was a COVID recruiting, let's call it, casualty to some degree. That year for any high school guys, even though he had been a 3-year starter at Lake Travis, was complicated. So he takes his talents and abilities out east to the prep school ranks. I think he went to St. Thomas More in Connecticut, and then again, continuing to find his way, ends up at Blinn. And at Blinn was a really good player, All-American honors there at Blinn. Played, then sat out a year due to injury, and then played again this past fall. And in Ife, I think we see a guy that has position flexibility between free and strong safety. Really smart football player, aggressive, and I think in both these guys they're gonna be able to change through the course of this semester. Just getting with Coach Heron, getting into a Division I strength program, a Division I nutrition program, and I think even though they have some years under their belt at the college ranks, I think their ability to continue to develop is significant. So I know both of them are really excited to be here. They will overlap maybe a little bit in that room as far as looking at the free safety position, but meshing in with the guys that we return. It's ultimately about finding those 3 starters at the strong safety, the free safety, and nickel positions, that all those spots are open, but providing a lot of competition and then having that position flexibility so we can get the best combination of guys out there. And that's maybe 3 guys, but it could be 4, it could be 5, it could be 6, based on how the cream rises to the top. Next up, Michael Rubich out of Rock Springs in Wyoming. As we looked at this particular class, we certainly wanted to add a punter. We did that with Colby Freucher. We wanted to add a long snapper. We did that with Brody Johnson earlier. And we also wanted to add a kicker. And I know Colby does have kickoff ability, has place kicking ability, but we also wanted to add a kicker. And Michael, along with those 2, they were all at our specialist camp this past summer. And they were guys that we targeted going back quite a ways, and settling on giving Michael this opportunity. It was a process. It was a competitive process, but we really felt good about, again, what he did here on campus last summer, and then what he proceeded to do in his high school season. He was first team All-State in Wyoming. Again, provides flexibility as far as place kicking off, and then I think is a good punter as well. So adds depth and competition to that room, and excited to bring Michael in. Michael's parents went here, and I think Montana State was certainly on his radar just from a school perspective, but to add the kicking opportunity was really exciting for him, and his ability is really exciting for us to add to the program. Tim Thomas out of Woodlands Park College Prep, College Park in Woodlands, excuse me. Tim's a guy that I think athletically in the back end is what we're looking for. Has good length, good speed. He's a 300-meter hurdle standout on the track. He's a guy that I think through the course of his high school career really transitioned from probably a guy that saw himself as a track guy to ultimately to a football guy, and had a really good senior year. And he played primarily corner for them at College Park, but ultimately he's a guy that we see transitioning into a safety position, whether that's free, nickel. He's a bigger body guy that could be strong. So he provides, again, that position flexibility, that skill set, his ability to cover, his ability to tackle, his range, I think is what we're looking for in the back end. I think Tim's a guy that just, physically will be able to walk onto campus and compete right from day one. So really excited about what he brings. He's a guy that has continued to change who he is as a football player. And that's the type of guys we want, guys that are continuing to improve. And he was one of those guys that we offered before signing day, but he didn't get a chance to visit till after. He committed shortly thereafter in December, and excited to make it official today. And then last up in this group, Major Thornhill, defensive end, out of Gunner in the northern part of Texas. Tremendous program down there. Major's a guy that has been a part of a lot of team success, but had a lot of individual success as well. We had intentions of adding another defensive end all along in this group, and Major's a guy that we had been on for quite some time. He had committed to another school for a good stretch, opened up his commitment, or opened up his recruiting, as the fall went along. And ultimately, all that was really post that first signing day. So in Major, I think we get a guy that, regardless of whether he was heavily recruited or not, has all kinds of ability, and I think comes from a program that he's used to winning, and winning at a high level. And he really identified with the opportunity here at Montana State, because a lot of the same characteristics are true with our program. So excited to add a couple more defenders in particular to this group. Again, excited to add one more offensive guy in Jackson, and then one more specialist in Michael. So with that, I'll open it up to specific questions about recruiting, and then we'll move along and talk about the coaching changes as well.
Big Sky Breakdown, proudly presented by the Bobcat Collective at Montana State. The Bobcat Collective is the NIL collective that serves Montana State University student athletes. The collective is partnered with Montana State to connect fans, alumni, businesses, and local nonprofits with Montana State student athletes. Opportunities through the collective allow student athletes to earn compensation while serving the greater Montana State University community. Sign up now for memberships and enjoy automatic entry into raffles for free tickets while supporting the bright minds at Montana State. They have multiple different membership tiers, and you can also be a one-time supporter, and you can also business partner or corporate supporter. Visit bobcatcollective.com for more.
I guess you mentioned a couple of the guys had experience in other sports, but especially track. I guess is that something you kind of look for in terms of skill position guys on offense, or even DBs on defense, and sort of that track speed?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a measurable component to what we're looking for. It's the long speed that track it provides. It's pretty pretty black and white, what a kid can run on the track. But there's also a competitive aspect, I think, that goes into those guys that get out there and, are certainly competing for their team, but track is very much a competitive individual sport. So, I think it's not a necessary component for DBs or receivers necessarily, but it's a piece that it certainly allows us to compare guys. And again, that competitive edge, I think that has to come out and shine on the track is something that we certainly desire.
The 2s and 3s got so much experience this season. Just how much, when you're building depth, how much confidence do you have in them from their experience that they were able to get last season coming into this upcoming one?
Yeah, I think continuing to evaluate our roster was bolstered by the fact that those guys got on the field a lot. And I think in some guys you saw a pretty significant evolution. And in some guys, you maybe didn't quite see that, but you still got a chance to evaluate them. And while those end of game situations, those second halves, in some ways isn't this prime time component to a season. It's meaningful. And, I think it's measurable to see how guys progress. So I think as we looked at our future, even our immediate needs, a lot of that's this ongoing process that was held by a lot of those opportunities. We played 16 games and, we had 2s and 3s that played 200 plus reps. We had, and that's significant. That doesn't happen every year. And we had a bunch of those guys that then moved into positions where they were playing more meaningful downs as the season went along. So I think we got a better picture of what some of our younger guys are capable of this past year than we did most years. And then on top of that, those guys end up practicing for almost a month and a half more, at least a month more than they did the previous year, a month and a half more than if you don't make the playoffs. And, that time on the practice field, in the meeting room, in that time with Coach Herron, and then we play on the 6th, we're back in classes on the 14th. It's like it was nonstop for them. So while that might seem challenging, it's really beneficial for all those young guys.
The more of a challenge this year compared to other years, considering the time of year, everything, the early signing day, the title game, and all the departures as well.
I think the early signing day, that was on the calendar early enough that we were able to adapt. We brought kids in on summer visits for summer official visits for the first time, so that allowed us to get a jump start. I think on the in-state guys in particular, I think we had 9 home games, of which 6 of those came before the early signing day. So we were able to get guys here from out of state to see what we have on a game day environment. So I think the early signing day, I think we adapted pretty well. And if it stays there, I think we're perfectly comfortable with what that looks like moving forward. I think playing as long as we did certainly has way more benefits than it doesn't, but it does create a really tight window on the other side. And it's twofold. It's the window that it creates for the guys looking at other opportunities. And I don't think they're able to necessarily fulfill all the opportunities that might be out there from even being able to visit. The timing of where it falls relative to all the other guys being in the transfer portal. So that's challenging. That's something I think we got to continue to look at just in college football in general. Because we played on the 6th, a lot of schools started on the 6th. And really the transfer window is what it is, but then your ability to start at another school is dictated by when schools start, not a certain date. So I think for those guys looking at opportunities, it's complicated. Then on the flip side, our ability to react to departures, whether we saw them coming or not, is a pretty tight window. With us starting the next week on the 14th, you have a 10 to 14 day, I suppose, grace period to get guys going with school, but also just being able to turn that around with a visit, with a really good feeling about what we have coming. It's challenging. So it's not to say that we would trade playing as late as possible any year, and all that. But there is some challenges, and I don't know that there's this great fix, because the football season and the teams playing into January is what everybody desires to do. School starting is something that is out of our control as coaches. And like I said, the schools are starting as early as the day we played in the championship. So, I know we're, as coaches, continually looking, and I'm saying as a American Football Coaches Association, looking at the best way to dial the mid-year piece in. And I don't know that there's a great answer. And all we can do here at Montana State is do the best to anticipate our needs, or anticipate whatever movement might be there, be able to hopefully counter those opportunities the best we can, and continue to move forward. A lot's made about the guys that took opportunities and left, but not a lot's made of the guys that didn't look at opportunities and stayed. And we have plenty of those on the same side. And so excited about this team moving forward, and excited about what they've been able to do the first couple of weeks since we've been working out. Excited about spring ball that gets going at the end of March.
Yeah, I think the AFCA proposed or talked about a 10-day window after the season for the portal. I don't know if you have thoughts on.
Yeah, I think tightening the window would be something that coaches, I think, would desire. It just, the longer the window is open, I don't know, the more prolonged the situation is. Moving it to the end of the season, what was the FBS championship game played on the 20th? I know semifinal games that fall between our game and that. If it exists just after the bowl games, you're still running into all the complications with school starting, and that really being the next step. The portal's open. There's no signing day necessarily. There's no end to it. Your ability to get kids into school is really the next complicated thing. So I think it's a constant topic where we land the next cycle. I would be a proponent of one window where it sits. See how that plays out.
Your program do such a good job of finding not just a transfer, but a transfer that kind of fits the culture. Just how much do that play into this upcoming season?
Well, I think that's been critical, and so we've been pretty intentional about figuring that out on the front side, and that's where that tight turnaround that was created in this particular sequence of events in January was challenging. But I think in Ife and Bryant, I think we felt like, okay, beyond what they'd shown on film, here's two guys that we felt like are hungry, they'll fit, and then they're really excited to be here. Putting those three ingredients, I think, are really important beyond just what the film looks like. I know there's still tons of kids in the transfer portal, tons of young men in the transfer portal, and that doesn't mean a very high percentage of that number will fit. So we got to find guys that will fit, whether they're coming from FBS lower levels or JC, like these two guys are coming from.
Jared White, first I can remember of a guy who went in the portal and came back to MSU. I guess can you speak on that decision at all?
Yeah, I think Jared was looking for speed, plain and simple, more opportunity with the depth we had and the competition we had at that position. That didn't present itself consistently through the season, and I think he was also very thought-minded. He didn't want to go anywhere. So I think, let's call it what it is. It was a little bit of an exploration for him. And certainly the dynamic in that room changed when lost a player. So, I think the dynamic changed a couple of times. I think through the course of the fall, when it became apparent that Julius would come back, that was a piece to the puzzle as he looked forward. And then we lost a player in Scott Trey after the game. I think that changed the dynamic back. So Jared didn't want to leave. I think at the same time he wanted to see what maybe was out there, and we had conversations really going back to I I'd say early November about his short-term outlook, which was the November and December, and then the long-term outlook. And the short-term was, hey, no matter what, he wanted to do everything he could for the 2014. He wanted to, play that out however that looked. And then, it became apparent as those days unfolded that, it was going to be in his best interest to come back, and that's where we're at.
And is that something with guys going in portal coming back that, like, overall you're okay with it? Or is it just case by case?
I think it's case by case. I think each situation is its own. I know, there's a couple guys that didn't finish the season out with us, and that's where December is really, the calendar makes it really complicated because there are opportunities to get recruited in December. There were, a couple of those guys that were injured through that time, and whether they could have come back or not, it didn't play out that way, but they felt like they needed to be recruited. So by being recruited is leave Bozeman to go take trips and those type of things, because the window to do that ultimately closed the weekend of our semifinal game. So each situation is its own. My preference is for the guys to be as transparent with their situation as possible so we can help them. And helping them is just being able to have a fair conversation first and foremost about certainly where they're at within our program, what their future looks like in our eyes, and then, just how to maneuver. And that's, I'll say it was a mixed bag this year. I mean, some guys we had a lot of conversations with, some guys we had zero conversations with. And it's my thought that the guys we had zero conversations with, it didn't serve them well. And that's not them necessarily coming back here. It's just what's out there, how to handle this, who should guide you, all those things. And ultimately what we want is what's best for those individuals. So to your point, each situation is its own, and we handle it as such.
A couple coaching questions.
Yeah, I'd like to just address the coaching changes. I guess as much as anything, with success comes opportunity on the coaching side as well. And for Tyler Walker and Al Johnson, the opportunity to go as a tandem to Temple presented itself, through the course of December, and obviously that opportunity became official shortly after the national championship. And for them, I'm excited for what that opportunity provides for those two and their families, and wish them the very best. And then, Justin Udy, taking the opportunity to go back to his home state, to go to Boise State, obviously a tremendous program in the landscape of college football. For Justin to get maybe back on a track from a quarterback perspective, led him in that direction. So excited for all three of those guys, and really I truly do, their efforts when they were here. I think they were all in. They allowed us to do the things that we did on Saturdays, but more so just how they led their position groups. Really thankful for that. But, creates opportunity for us to move forward, and, starting with the offensive coordinator, quarterback's position, with our system, with our success on offense, my thought process was for us to have as good a continuation there as possible. So you start, within, with guys maybe within that have maybe growing up within that system to some degree, and that becomes a pretty short list. It's guys that have, I suppose, tagged around with Joe Moorhead a little bit, and I'm saying system, just the language, the terminology, those types of things. So beyond that, I was hoping I could get an experienced play caller, a guy who had adapted to a system before, and a guy that had experience coaching quarterbacks. And in Pete Sturmick, I think he checked all those boxes. I didn't know Pete. I knew of Pete. I certainly recognized the success that Colorado School of Mines had in his time there. I knew Coach Greg Brandon, who had hired him and was the head coach I knew him fairly well. He was at Wyoming before I was. So, and Pete was really interested in coming back to the state of Montana. He spent a good chunk of years at Montana Tech, had some real success as play caller there, took the opportunity to go to Mines, called plays, became the head coach, both as a coordinator and then as a head coach. And, coached a team that made it to the national championship game at the Division II level, has put up numbers in a lot of different ways. I think knows what coaching, winning football is all about. So, really excited about the experience that Pete brings to the table. And I know he's thrilled to be here, and, he's been here just a couple of weeks, but I think his interaction with our players has been, very impactful in a short time. And like I said, he's gone into a system. He went from Montana Tech to Colorado School of Mines, took on their system, certainly made it his own, but he has experience in that regard. And now he'll come here from the School of Mines and really take on our system and make it his own. Additionally, hiring that offensive line coach, was the next important, I suppose, position. And that spot, whether coached by Al Johnson or Brian Armstrong, we've been very fortunate to have those two guys guide that room. And that room, that group of guys has been the foundation for our success offensively. So process of going through that and ultimately landing on Matt Smith did start with Brian Armstrong. Brian had called me well over a month ago and suggested Matt. And he had a chance to work with Matt 1 year at Fresno, and then Matt took over for Brian when he left for Nevada. And that initial call, I just said, yeah, okay, I'll take him into consideration. And I had a chance to meet with Matt shortly thereafter. Had a chance to interview him, and he rose to the top of the guys I was looking for. And an offensive line coach, no matter how experienced he is, has to be a teacher. And Matt, to me, demonstrated that ability. And he, is very passionate about coaching that position, very knowledgeable. I think his experience as a player at Fresno State as a center, and really, he was probably an extension, easily to say he was an extension of the coaching staff through that time there. So really excited about what he brings and how he complements Matt, or complements Pete in that regard, and really excited to be here. With Justin's spot, had the ability to do some maneuvering within the staff. Felt it was in our best interest to move Sam Mix to receivers. Sam is being played receiver, started his coaching career as a receiver, worked with Justin in that room before he became our running backs coach. And really have thought highly of what Sam's done with the running backs the last couple of years, and thought this transition for him made the most sense for us. And that opened the opportunity to bring in Justin Mesa as a running backs coach. Justin and I worked together back in 17 and 18 at the University of Wyoming. And what I saw in Justin there was a very knowledgeable football guy. He was off the field. He was coaching for us at the time. Very professional, very organized, very detailed. He was on the recruiting side. And then he went back and became a high school head coach a couple of years back in Los Angeles, and then moved on to Washington State. Initially in an off-the-field role, but then an on-the-field role as it moved on. And, I'm really excited to bring Justin to this program. He's one of those guys that I've had in mind if the opportunity came about to hire, and the opportunity came about here. So with those three additions, really excited about, the new makeup of our offense staff, combined with Sam Mix and Jordan Walsh. And then obviously addressing the special team side of things with Marcus. And Marcus has done a really good job assisting Justin the last 3 years in some regard, and in particular this past year where he became a sole special teams coach, and on the field coach with the specialists. He was a big part of working with Justin in devising our game plan and how we went through in-game adjustments, those type of things. And I definitely think he's ready for this opportunity. So that'll open up to whatever questions about the coaching. I know we skipped over Coulter. He probably has questions about recruiting too, so he can hit it all with one.
Do you want him to go first or?
No, I'll come back to Coulter.
Okay. I just, you mentioned that having an experienced play caller, obviously Taylor, I don't believe had any before they were from the OC. So why was that so important?
Well, if we were taking someone from the outside, which we did, I someone outside of our system, I think the play calling piece then carries greater value. If you're promoting a guy, and Taylor and I worked together, so there's a little different dynamic, bringing Taylor in. So I didn't have an outside person that I had worked with that I felt like, okay, I'm comfortable with the situation, meaning he hasn't called plays, but he's ready to do that. So I think that's where that piece really I carried a lot of value, and maybe equally just that experience that he could articulate to me going from Tech to Mines and taking over there on play calling side from Nick Fulton at the time, who moved on, but really under the guidance of Coach Brandon. So and Coach Brandon spoke about that transition and how it went for Pete, how he handled it, and how, again, on the other side of this terminology bridge, I guess he still made their offense moving forward his own too. So I guess that's rational.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
Coulter, do you have anything?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, Coach.
Hi.
I guess we'll start with the coaching stuff since you're talking about that right now. When it comes to sort of the blending of ideas, what's your philosophy on that? Because you guys have pretty in place, I'd say, systems, but obviously you want new ideas coming in too. So how do those two things kind of go hand in hand?
Well, I think it's having someone that brings, I guess, or having a group of guys for that matter that bring a varied experience, and you want them to come in and be able to express their thoughts, and that's while being able to really evaluate what we've done and then who we have in place moving forward. We want our offense to adapt to our players, not our players to adapt to our offense. We're going to recruit to our offense, I think, certainly, but ultimately each year, and even sometimes within a season, you're adapting your offense to your players, not vice versa. So I think we're in a critical phase right now as we go beyond recruiting for the offensive staff, to sit in that room and evaluate what we've done well, and then also look at our players moving forward and who they are. So you're always evolving, I guess, is how I see coaching in general, whether that's offense, defense, special teams, and you have your systems in play that are certainly your foundation. You have your terminology, your language that hopefully are, your players know and understand and inside out, but you're constantly trying to find a better way to do it. So, that's always an out of season process. And I think in this situation, bringing in, the guys we did, I think we're going to bring some new ideas and some new thoughts to the table. And, we got to figure out what fits best and what's, again, what can our players do first and foremost, and how can we highlight their abilities first and foremost.
Is that part exciting to you, having a new offensive coordinator that's also going to work with quarterbacks and having a new starting quarterback as well? I mean, is it sort of like a new chapter for the offense?
I think so. Yeah. Not that I want to see Tyler leave by any means, but I think it is a really good opportunity because we've talked about it. I think our offense really leaned into Tommy Malotte's skill set, rightfully so. And that doesn't mean that is our offense. Our offense is much broader than that. And even what Pete, Matt, Justin bring to the table is much broader than that. So yeah, I think it is exciting. I think it's, the timing and even our quarterback competition right now. That's all exciting. I think the unknown sometimes is you can look at it two ways. I think you can be optimistic about it. You can be pessimistic. You can be excited about it. You can be scared about it. I choose to be excited and optimistic about what's in front of us, and that's the talent in that room. But then it's talent quarterback room, but it's also the hunger within this coaching staff to continue to move this thing forward.
When it comes to offensive line, you've had a guy with great pedigree like Al Johnson, a guy with great experience, but now you have a sort of a younger guy. So what's that transition like, and what gives you so much faith in your new hire?
Yeah, Matt's a different hire than the other two guys. That's retaining Brian, which was easy when I got here, and then hiring Al. I don't think what you go and look for in hiring is I need to find the next guy that's exactly like Al Johnson. Al Johnson's a one-off, and he did a really good job in transitioning that group. So that's what I think, to me, okay, who can come in and have this open mind to see what we've done again, evaluate who's returning, evaluate what's coming up, take his own relative experience and blend that. I think in Matt, I had a long conversation with Coach Tedford. Just experience beyond his years, I think is how I took that conversation. Coach Tedford didn't take the decision lightly when he replaced an experienced guy like Brian Armstrong with a young guy that he had just coached a few years ago in Matt Smith. So, you want to hire guys, or you want to hire guys who are well known by guys, and that's the case here with Brian's year he spent with Matt, and also just my feeling about Matt as we went through the interview process. So it might look a little bit different. Matt might coach a little bit different. I know he's going to be passionate. I know he's knowledgeable, and I know he really believes in how we've done things. And I certainly look at that Fresno program and the toughness they play with, and who they've been over to my time, overlapping with Fresno a little bit, and certainly watching from afar. He's had a chance, whether it's Coach Tedford, Coach DeBoer, Brian Grubb, Saga, who's now down at Arizona State, Brian, and to really be touched by some phenomenal coaches. And, I think he's in the makings of that.
When it comes to junior college guys and recruiting, do you think that's a sort of like a renewal of a place to go recruit with the sort of portal era that we are living through?
Yeah, I think, one thing that we've recognized over the last couple of years, not as many top tier, not being as many FBS programs, period, are recruiting the junior college ranks. They're more portal oriented. And at the same time, there's still talent at the junior college level. In particular, I think the junior college landscape is regional in our country. It's certainly California heavy. It's heavy in the South from, Texas over through Mississippi, Alabama. I know Kansas is a big junior college state still. So it is a little bit regional, but those places also have, I think in particular Texas and California, crazy population. Football athleticism is in high volume, and not all those guys land maybe where they want to land at out of high school. So in the rule change piece, I don't know where that's going to go with junior college. I don't think it's far from determined what that's going to look like. So there'll be continued evolution either way with with what junior college looks like. But I know through the portal era now, which has been a few years, I think there's still a need and a reason to look at junior college, and I think we've done all right with it, and really excited about Ryan and Ife coming in here and continue to prove that thought process right.
Is a will you marry me in your future? Or maybe you do it all over again. Hi, I'm Brian Toon with Jewelry Design Center, inviting you to come see the largest selection of Will You Marry Me in the state of Montana. The brightest diamonds of every shape and size, unique settings built to last, and skilled jewelers on site offering free sizing and maintenance for life, because that's how long we want to be your jeweler. Jewelry Design Center in Missoula, on Brooks, across from the Montana Club.
Now that you have 4 seasons under your belt and you can recruit to a couple of Big Sky championships, a couple runs to national title games, is that a tool when you're on the road recruiting? And if so, how has that sort of helped you in terms of getting in the front door and recruiting high caliber players?
Well, I think each year you stack up. I think it shows where we can be, where we want to be, where we think we should be. And I know this year, probably most of any of the years, we were put on a pretty significant stage multiple times from a TV perspective, all that stuff. So I think our exposure continues to be there. I think our consistency in what we're about is really important too. Being a program that has very high expectations and has been able to accomplish great things, I think is I think what we've been able to demonstrate and what we're about. And I think even as many guys as we've been able to bring here from out of state on a game day, I think the consistency, even with how our program is viewed on a Saturday here in Bozeman, is significant. And then those guys that have been here maybe throw on a playoff game and it looks the exact same. And I think guys want to play at a program with high expectations, with the amazing support that we have. They desire that, and not that many programs have what we have, and the combination of those two things.
You're often talking about evolving just in terms of all sorts of different parts about your program. Has your recruiting philosophy evolved? And if so, how?
Well, I think you're constantly trying to adapt. I guess that's, I think our philosophy is still, we need to build this from the ground up. Our guys that, come here as high school graduates and their first stop is Montana State, needs it has been our foundation. And how do we continue to adapt? I think there's gonna be needs here and there that present itself, because maybe some of that development hasn't quite become complete. We are not perfect recruiting high school guys by any stretch, but I think we've done a pretty good job. So I do think that's been the constant, that's our philosophy: recruiting high school kids, developing them, pouring into them, watching them change from 18 years old to 19 to 20, and that becoming beyond the foundation of our program, our very best players. And understanding that we're going to have a few situations like Connor Moore, where we find a diamond in the rough, and a couple years down the road, he's as high a recruited a offensive lineman as there in the country, and that's okay. That we'll take the 2+ years we had with Connor versus not taking that chance. I think there's a much higher probability of having the internal culture that we want, how we do it. It's not to say you can't bring in all kinds of outside transfers and such and put it all together. It's not to say you can't do that, but I like our odds doing it the way that we've chosen to. And it's not going to be perfect, but I think our odds are better. So staying ahead of it on the high school side is going to continue to be how we do things, continuing to adapt on the transfer side of things. And, I think has to be how we look at it too. That's why I say, I think we're done high school wise for this cycle, but it doesn't mean we're done on the transfer side.
Thank you.
All good?
Just one more about Coach Sturbeck. He's obviously very successful at the Division II level. What is it about his system or the way he ran his offense specifically that you kind of knew like he can be successful at this level?
Well, I think the biggest thing I look at is a body of work where it wasn't always the same, but it was productive. That tells me that year in, year out, there was an effort to, again, adapt the offense to the players. He's been a part of an explosive offense that ran it more than he's threw it, and he's been part of the flip side more recently where they threw it more than they ran it. So how we go forward in that striking that balance, it's about productivity more than it is we got to rush for X number of yards versus pass. So I think generally speaking, that's how I would look at it. I think what he has done personnel wise, run scheme wise, RPO wise, there's a lot of overlap. So it's not like, okay, our system that we run here is completely different. There's plenty of overlap, but just it's more his ability to continue to produce, and produce in different ways that I would say is, and that's a pretty significant body of work between, in particular his time at Mines and his time at Tech.